Professor Kaminsky.
Yeah. What's up?
Oh, me and Justina are both sharing a laptop, so she's here. I don't know if you got her before. But...
yeah, I think I did. I'll double check that I did. Okay, thank you. I saw that in the chat. Thanks. Okay, guys. So, like I said, just a couple of things on Moodle. So I'm pretty much, I think I'm caught up to grading all of your assignments so far, except for the exam. So I just have to go through and grade the essays. It doesn't show you, I don't know why it just doesn't show you the multiple choice, even though I haven't graded the essays yet, but it doesn't. So once I grade the essays, the correct answers are already uploaded there. So you'll be able to view the whole attempt and see the multiple choice and also the essay questions, okay? And then you'll be able to see your final grade on that exam. I will do that, this week. So you should have those grades in the, next couple of days or so. We are supposed to put up 3-week assessment grades. I think that's really technically only for the freshmen and the sophomores, but just so you know, I will make sure once that exam is graded, I'll make sure that the grade that's showing on Moodle is accurate. So then you guys know exactly where you stand up to this point, okay? For the other assignments, like the case studies and the journal article summary, I mean, I was like super, super lenient in grading. A couple things in terms of how people submitted things. The only thing that you really can hand write is the completed review sheet assignment. I don't care about that, but everything else needs to be typed up in a Word or a PDF document, because when I use Turnitin to check for plagiarism, it will not read a handwritten document, okay? So it needs to be submitted that way. For those assignments that were already submitted, you're fine. You don't have to worry about it, but moving forward, okay? I did write a comment in the box if that was the case. So I think that's pretty much it for that. Now, again, moving forward, like for the case studies and for some of the journal article summaries, if we're doing some more of those, I probably will be a little more strict in the grading, okay? But that's pretty much it. So if you have questions about anything, just let me know on an individual basis, I guess. So moving forward, right, we're now starting Unit 2, which is Chapter 5 and 6 are the chapters we're going to cover from Unit 2. That Chapter 5 lecture is up, okay? And I will put Chapter 6 up as well. Now, what I did do, I added an assignment or two, and I also pushed the exam back technically, I think, but I wrote in a solid date for the next exam, okay? So it's coming up quickly. So like I said, we'll talk about the group project this week as well. So that's next on the agenda, okay? So I'll talk about that assignment here for the group project when we talk about that, okay? I did add this might have been here, but there is an assignment for the case study on Chapter 6, okay? So take a look at that. You have, I believe, until next Monday for that one, okay? So we didn't really talk about Chapter 6, and I haven't uploaded the lecture just yet. There also is a quiz, a Chapter 5-6 quiz. Instead of doing that quiz in class like we did for the last one and for the exam, that one I'm going to let you just do on your own, okay? So that Chapter 5-6 quiz will be available from 5 p.m. on Friday. That way I know that the Chapter 6 lecture has been uploaded and everything already until Sunday, like 11:59 p.m. Okay, if you click on that, you'll see that. It'll tell you how much time you have and everything like that. But you're just gonna go on your own as long as it's between that time frame, and you complete that quiz on your own. Okay, does anyone have a question about that? No? Okay, so that's that. And for Chapter 5, I didn't put a case study up. I was going to add one, but instead we'll just go over one together in class. I won't put it up as an assignment, okay? Because really your assignment this week is this group project journal article. Like I said, I'll talk about that, but that's due Friday, okay? So I didn't really give you another assignment for this week. Then just looking ahead for Unit 3, we'll be covering Chapter 8. I did leave out Chapter 9 entirely last year, And that's the way I kind of have it planned for now. If I'm going to look at chapter 9 again and just see, there may be something that I feel like we should include. And if that's the case, that would be included on this next exam 2 as well. Okay. But as of now, it's chapters 5, 6, and 8. Okay. And obviously all the recorded lectures will be uploaded for those chapters. Okay. So that's your next exam. It's on October 5th. Okay. Monday, October 5th. That's when the exam will be. If there's some extra stuff from chapter 9, I will let you know. Okay. But otherwise it's chapters 5, 6, and 8. Okay. And then after that, we'll move on to unit 4 and we'll start with chapter 10 there. Okay. So everything's pretty much been updated up until that point. And then I'll probably add in a case study for chapter 10. I may add a few more assignments for unit 4, but I don't think you really need to worry about that right now. Just worry about up until exam 2. Okay. You will have to submit that completed exam 2 review sheet as well. And that's due next Wednesday, I believe. But so all the due dates have been updated. Let's just double check that I did that. Let me just check. Chapter 8 case study. I believe I went through and made sure these were all right. Yeah. So the chapter 8 case study will be due next Wednesday, right? We'll have already, covered chapter 8. And then the same thing for that exam review sheet. Okay. So as I said, that exam review sheet, if you want to handwrite that, that's okay. But that's the only assignment that would be okay to handwrite. Right. Any questions, guys, about any of that? No? Okay. So let me talk some more about the project. Okay. So this will be a group project. Okay. So what I'm going to do, today or tomorrow, I'm going to put up a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc. I'll share it with every single one of you. And what you're going to need to do is put your group names, right? Who you're going to work with in your group. And then also what your topic is going to be in that Google Doc. Okay. And then on Wednesday, we'll take some time out of class to break up into those groups. And we'll be in person Wednesday, right? And if those people that are on Zoom, we'll figure that out. So basically what we can do, are we going to be able to do that? I think we should be able to assemble ourselves to kind of talk to our group members. And then if one of your group members is not in class, then you can just FaceTime them. And even if we have to kind of I don't know, we can send a group outside or something like that. We'll figure it out. Okay. But I want to at least spend a little bit of time on Wednesday so that I can talk to the individual groups to see what your topic is and kind of where you're at. Okay. So let me I'll pull up this assignment. That's your kind of first assignment that's tied to the group project. Okay. I'll pull that up in a second. Let me just pull up a document that kind of outlines what the actual project is. Okay. That's probably helpful to know what it is first. If you have an issue with who you want to work with, or you feel like you don't know enough people in class and you have an issue with that, just email me individually and we'll work something out. Okay. If you're going to ask me if this can be done individually, the answer is no, it is a group project. Okay. Nobody will ever have to meet in person if you don't want to. You can do all of your group meetings virtually, and we will use some class time for this, like I said. Okay. Does anyone have any questions kind of before I just tell you a little bit more about the project?
How many people are in each group?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't say that. 2 to 3. So you can have 2 people or 3 people. Obviously, if it becomes 4, then it has to separate into 2 separate groups. Okay, 2 to 3 people. Other questions, guys? All right. Okay, all right. So, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and I will upload this to Moodle too. There's also a rubric that you guys will have as well. Same thing. I probably have to modify it slightly, but maybe not, but I just want to take a look at it before I upload it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make a poster. Okay. Now, in science, we make posters all the time, right? Like research posters. And I'll show you an example of a more research poster. But what I'm doing for you guys is you really have a choice, right? Like if you want to make it more, I guess sort of more of a scientific poster or research, or more of a research oriented poster versus more of like a patient information poster, that's your choice. So you can kind of take two different approaches for this, or to this. However, I mean, it's all going to have the same components. All right. But I kind of left that kind of up to you guys. In terms of kind of just basic structure and design, there's some things that are listed here. And like I said, I'll show you an example in a second, but you know, it's just a poster that has to kind of highlight main points, right? So you're not going to write large amounts of text or anything like that. Okay. Things will be bullet pointed. There'll be subheadings or sort of categories and sort of subdivisions within the poster. Amount of words would be limited. And again, you want to kind of think about what the population is. Are you presenting this poster to your colleagues, right? Or are you presenting this poster to patients that might have this disease? Okay. So that's going to maybe slightly change the way you present the information. All right. So it's just kind of two different ways of kind of thinking about it. Does anyone have questions about that? Okay. In terms of content, and again, what I'll probably do too, you'll see, I'll show you the preview of the poster, but I'll probably take that poster example that I have and I'll probably structure it based on what the content should be. Meaning like this section, here's where you should put, you know, your stats on prevalence and whatever. Okay. So I'll give you guys sort of like a template for it. But these are some of the things that you're going to include in your poster. Okay. Again, you're choosing a disease, right? So any disease or disorder of your choice, you're going to obviously write kind of a general definition or identify what that disease is, explain it a little bit, okay? Also have some statistics on prevalence, right? And the populations that are affected, things like that, okay? And then signs and symptoms, clinical tests, right? Prevention and management, all of those should be kind of in there. And that's probably stuff that you can find like in a review article, okay? And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's not as involved as these other two things that are starred here, okay? So for causes, I have it labeled as causes, right? You're gonna have to include some sort of figure, right? Or I don't know, some sort of schematic or something like that, that explains what's happening on the cellular and the molecular level to cause the disease, right? So like if you think about sickle cell anemia, right? It's a mutation in that sickle cell gene that causes the protein to be misshapen, essentially, right? And then it's not able to carry oxygen properly. So you want to go through, and there's even more details that you could add in there. You want to go through the specifics of the mechanism that causes the disease, okay? Well, we always say that we don't know what the cause of it, most diseases are, but I guess cause is probably not the right way of labeling this, so I'll probably change that terminology. But the idea is, you know, even though we don't know what caused the mutation for, you know, sickle cell or whatever, we know that's a genetic cause, but even for, so that's not a good example, I guess. Even for, you know, and you're not going to be able to pick something like cancer probably. I mean, I guess you could, but it would have to be a specific cancer, okay? And then for, you know, causes, you may have multiple mechanisms, right? So you have to kind of be careful with what you choose. But bottom line is, when we're trying to get at the cause, it's what's the biological mechanism, right? What's happening on that cellular and molecular level to lead to the symptoms that you see, right? To lead to that disease. And I'll help you with this part of it, okay? But this is one of the main parts, okay? You can't just, you know, you can't just kind of be like, oh, you know, here's my disease and these are the symptoms and that's it, right? That's very, you know, sort of scratching the surface. We want to get deeper, okay? So like I said, I'll help you with that, but I just wanted you guys to understand that that's going to be a really important part of this poster, okay? Even if you're talking to patients, you would still be trying to help them understand what's actually going on biologically or physiologically, okay? Does anyone have questions about that? I know I kind of blabbed a little bit, sorry.
So do we choose our audience? Like we can either do like a public thing or more like a...
Yeah, you can. You can choose. I'm letting you guys choose how you want to approach this, right? And that's fine, but you still would have to convey the same information, right? But maybe in a different way, right? And that's kind of the idea. So yeah, you can choose. You guys can choose the sort of where you're coming from, okay? Other questions, guys? Okay, so like I said, I'll help guide you through this, right? So that's why I'll work with you guys in the beginning, especially to be like, all right, tell me what you think the biological mechanism is. And I mean, I might be like, well, no, I think you have to go a little bit deeper, right? Okay, so I'll help you guys with that. So I won't leave you, on your own. The other big piece is this piece here, right? We talked about evidence-based research, right? I gave you guys a couple articles focused on COVID, and maybe we'll do a few more, but the idea is to find an article from primary literature, right, from a journal, and present that information, okay? Now, it could be an article that was focused on a procedure used to treat your disease. That's okay, right? But it could also just be a basic science article about focused on understanding a certain disease, okay? So you can kind of, again, what you're gonna present here might vary, but the bottom line is it just has to be something that's from the primary literature, okay? And again, I'll help you with this, okay? And your first assignment, and I'll flip back to that, is actually based on this. So each individual student in the group will have a piece of that poster from their article, right? So everyone's gonna find a separate article for this part. You're probably gonna have to find other articles for the rest of it too, right? But for this part, you're gonna find a separate article, and maybe you're gonna pull a figure from that article and be like, all right, in this study, this is what they found, right? So you're just kind of pulling out the main finding. Does that make sense? And if you're talking to a patient, you got to really put it in simple terms, okay? But you're basically presenting that study in terms of what they found and why it's important to your disease, right? Or how you treat that disease, or understanding the mechanism, right? Whatever it might be, okay? So each individual student from the group will find their own article, okay? So I have a way of assessing individual, right, contributions, and then also group. So some stuff will kind of be together, but in terms of your grade, every single person will get a separate grade, okay? Sometimes people get like weird with group projects because of that. So I feel like this is one way to kind of like make sure that, I can assess individually, but also as a group as well, okay? Questions about that? All right, so let me show you first my example of a poster, and then I'm gonna pull up this assignment, okay? That again, the assignment, your first assignment really kind of relates to this part, the evidence-based research part, okay? You will also be presenting this, and it'll be like each person will probably talk like 3 minutes. Usually when you present a poster like this at a conference, whether it's a clinical conference or a research-based conference, it's like 5 minutes, right? And then people ask questions, and then you have to be able to kind of answer those questions. So it's different than doing a PowerPoint where like you're talking maybe for a half an hour and then questions are shorter. With a poster, it's like a quick presentation, but you can get bombarded with questions, okay? So I won't bombard you with questions, but I definitely will ask you a couple of questions, and that will be part of the grade as well, all right? So like I said, I have to probably update this slightly, the rubric especially too, to see how to fit in the presentation part of it, but you'll just get one grade for the project that encompasses the actual poster and then also the presentation part of it, okay? Does that make sense, guys? And it will all be done when we do the presentations, we'll do it virtually, right? And we're just gonna pull up the poster and then we'll talk it through that way. So let me show you what I mean by a poster. So who's done a poster before? Anyone? Anyone ever present a poster?
Yeah.
For what? What'd you do it for?
I actually think it was for a biology class. I think it might have been microbiology. We did it on like a certain, I mean, it was kind of different than this because it wasn't as like research based, but okay. We chose a disease and did like signs and symptoms. It was more like, it wasn't as specific. It was more like general.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know you meant like a research one.
No. No, that's what I mean. I mean, I really just any kind of thing. No, that's what I was getting at. not necessarily a research thing. So this is very research, right? I just wanted, and like I said, I'll probably modify this to include those criteria that I listed on the guidelines, right? So that you guys have a template that you can use. This is also kind of boring, right? It's a white background. Like you can make it look a lot better than this. There are probably a few too many words here. I would expect, I mean, maybe it's not too bad, but you really don't want too many words. But what you want is you want to have pictures and figures, right? You guys aren't going to have data like this, right? But you'll have, say, from our article, you know, the one article that you found, you may title it like, you know, new treatment for, you know, sickle cell anemia, right? And then you're going to summarize what that paper found, right? So you can kind of divide it up using these boxes. Okay, so like one person's article would be in this box, another group members in this box, and another one, say, in this box. Okay, so so again, you'll divide up your poster based on that. So it's just, and you can make it in PowerPoint. There are other softwares that you can use as well, but it's just one slide. So when you're presenting, you'll just have this one slide up and you'll talk through the poster. Okay, does anyone have questions about that? No? We're all right? Okay. All right, so let me just show you the assignment because that's what you have to worry about right now, right? So, and again, I'm going to help you guys through this, okay? I'm not just going to leave it for you guys just to do and then just only look at it when you submit it, okay? We're going to do it kind of together stepwise. Okay, so with that said, the first assignment, which is due on Friday, by the end of the day Friday, okay? Because again, I just want you guys to get started on this, and then we'll pick up with it. Same thing, but actually we're going to talk about this a little bit more on Wednesday too. Once you guys tell me who your groups are, I can even help you find articles, okay? So it's probably, so I guess your job from now until Wednesday is to figure out what groups you're going to work in and what your topic is, and probably a good idea to at least search PubMed a little bit to see kind of what's out there, okay? You may choose a topic and then start looking for articles and be like, oh, forget it. That's going to be too difficult to do. You know what I mean? So that's okay. You can kind of modify it if you need to, all right? So what you're going to do is basically you're going to find an article. Each individual student's going to do this, okay? You're going to find an article, can be a review article, okay, related to your disease that you're going to choose. You're going to need to upload the full PDF of that article, right? The entire thing, not just the abstract. And I'll click on this and I'll show you what I mean in a second, okay? And then you're just gonna write like a one-page, not very long, one-page summary of sort of the important points of that article and basically kind of what you plan to use from that article, okay? Does anyone have a question about that? All right, so if we click on that, okay, that's the link to get you here to PubMed. Now, you can go through the library, and so let's put it this way, you know, there's different databases that you can use, right? So if you only wanted to focus on nursing related journals, you could do that. That's fine, okay? We just have to make sure that they are primary research journals. If you're just gonna use PubMed, it's pretty easy to do. So one thing that you wanna make sure of is that you check off free, you know, journals that are free to me, okay? So I don't know, somebody throw out another disease or one that they're thinking of. What are you thinking? Somebody throw out a topic.
ADHD.
ADHD? Ooh, what happened here? Okay. So you put in AG, oh, there's not really that many articles on that. 1,600 came up just by putting ADHD. Now, probably if you wrote out the name, attention deficit, whatever, hyperactivity disorder, you might get a few more hits. But what you want, oh, I already have it checked off. So you want to just make sure you hit free full text. That way you're not looking at articles that you don't have access to, okay? It's just the easiest way to go about it. I think you guys have enough to choose from that way. with that said, if you find an article or think that you really, really want a certain article that you don't have access to, email me and send me the citation. I probably can get it, okay? But I think it's just best to kind of just stick with this. All right, so questions right now, guys. Okay, so then you probably want to, you know, maybe make this a little more specific, right? That search. So you just have to kind of, you know, search for kind of what you're looking for. The other thing you hit here, oh, so I already have it pressed too. You can click review. Okay, remember that COVID article, I believe, was a review. Oh, I gave you guys a review, right? That first article we went over. It's good to start with a review article. Okay, actually, the article that you guys did the assignment on was also a review article. So why is it good to start with a review article? What do you guys think?
Does it like give you a basic overview of the topic and includes like multiple pieces of information where you can like find out like which ones you want to focus on or research further?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good explanation. I'm sorry. So yeah, it's an overview of the topic, right? It's going to cite a whole bunch of other research on that topic that you then can go and look at more closely, right? So best place to start is a review article. So you guys even may, for this first assignment, you know, if you have 3 group members or whatever, each one of you find a different review article, right? Because again, remember for this assignment, it has to be, everyone has to choose a different article, okay? For your group, you cannot all have the same article. In fact, nobody can have the same article, okay? And so again, we're gonna know ahead of time who's doing what topic. That's why I'm gonna put up that Google Doc. We're not gonna have repeats of the same topic, okay? So we shouldn't be choosing the same articles. All right, good. So I would start with a review article. Like I said, you can just use that PubMed link and just search right here. You can even, there are other filters, and I think I showed you this before, right? You can even click this and it would only pull nursing journals, although nothing came up for ADHD, okay? So there are a lot of other filters that are available here, all right? Any questions, any more questions about that, guys? No? Okay, so, so let me go back. Oh, we're happening to my Moodle here. Oh, I know why. That's because I went from that link in 1 second. Play goes back. There we go. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be due Friday by the end of the day, but you know, you may want to sort of hold off. You're going to have to, I guess, hold off on this until you confirm what your topic is. Okay? All right, guys. So that's that. I mean, I guess that's kind of what I just wanted to introduce this so that we can get going on this project. So again, by Wednesday, and I'll write that when I share that Google Doc with you, I'll add a message saying, hey, write your group members' names, write your topic, and it's going to be your responsibility to check the Google Doc before you add in your topic to make sure nobody has chosen that topic. So I guess it's sort of first come, first serve, right? If whoever had it in there first, they have first dibs on that topic, okay? What are some does anyone have some topics in mind, I guess, right now? Anyone have a topic in mind that they want to share? No? All right. Well, anywho, we'll share it on our Google Doc. And then, like I said, we will be in person for those who wish to be on Wednesday. So we'll figure out how we're going to kind of break up the groups from there. Okay. All right. Any other questions related to that? All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the chapter 5 lecture. There was something that one of my students in my other section asked about in terms of clarification, and probably it's worth me just going through it with you guys as well. Oh, wait, before I do that, this is, I forgot to do this in my other class too. I just wanted to pull up the assignment, that COVID article assignment. I probably should have talked about this before. Just real quick, I just wanted to kind of just review this with you guys. Obviously, you know, we all did fine with the assignment because we pulled that information, you know, from the article. So just be careful, guys. You know, when you submit the assignment, it will generate like a similarity report through Turnitin. If your similarity percentage is like close to 50% or 50% or above, you know, caution, right? Be careful, because you don't want to copy and paste from the article, okay? So you want to do as much, the best you can to sort of paraphrase that information. And the same goes when you're putting this information into the poster, right? And when you're writing this journal article summary for the article that you're finding for your project, just be careful, okay? We want to try to read that information and then try to put it as much as we can into our own words, okay? There's still going to be some similarity, I get it, but just be careful with that, okay? There was no major issue, but I just wanted to just point that out. I guess just a couple of questions that I want to talk about based on this. I think number one is pretty straightforward, okay? So we can kind of leave it at that. But number two, I wrote, why do you think it's important to identify genetic mutations or alterations in SARS-CoV-2 patients who do not exhibit symptoms? So why doesn't a couple people share what they wrote for this? Or somebody share what they wrote. Why do you think this is important based on what we talked about in our genetics chapter?
I wrote something along the lines of, if you see a pattern of genetic variations or mutations in individuals who aren't getting sick, that could be an indication of something that we could use to treat the virus, maybe, or to prevent it.
Yeah, good. I think that's the point. Or it points out something that, yeah, that's a protective sort of mechanism, right, from the virus, right? And we would want to know what that is. And you're right. Maybe you can tap into that system with a drug or something like that, right? And so even those people that don't have that sort of protection, we can induce it somehow, right? Yeah. So I guess that was the point. I noticed that a couple of people kind of missed that point. That was kind of the idea that I was sort of getting at in terms of, you know, that's the information we would want to know. Did anyone put something different and want to kind of explain why they put that? No? Okay. The other thing I wanted to just kind of just go over was number 3 here. So I said, what is ACE2? So there's like a super short, simple answer that you could say it's the receptor that, you know, the COVID basically uses to gain entry into the cell, right? But what does it do normally, ACE2? And some people added this in there. So what if you did, what'd you write? What is ACE2? Because I asked you in the next question how it's related to SARS, to COVID, right? And then you sort of describe some of the research that is sort of relates ACE2 and COVID, right? But I guess my part A, and I probably should have clarified this. I guess I was looking for what's the normal function of ACE2? Someone, a bunch of you guys answered it. So what'd you put? Somebody tell me what you put there.
I don't know if this is right. I didn't put this, but so an ACE inhibitor, that's for blood pressure. So would ACE increase your blood pressure then?
Well, yeah, yeah, it's an enzyme, right? I mean, actually, if you just Google up some of the images here, you can kind of get a little bit more of an idea of it. But yeah, it's an enzyme. Let's see if I have I think this one is kind of just nice to look at real quick. that is involved in this sort of angiotensin 2 pathway. So there's this pathway, this hormonal kind of pathway that regulates blood pressure. And right, these inhibitors will interfere with that pathway, right, to basically cause blood vessel dilation, right? And so it leads to dilation of the blood vessel, which then decreases blood pressure. So I don't know, I guess what I was trying to get at, or what I wanted you guys to kind of think about, is there, I mean, I guess if you think about kind of the normal role of this ACE2, right? Again, it acts as an enzyme, okay? But essentially we can think of it as being involved in regulating blood pressure on certain, it sits on the cell surface of certain cells. What, I don't know, do you think it's kind of curious that I guess this is the receptor that COVID uses to gain entry based on, I guess, some of the symptoms and things that we've sort of heard about with COVID? What do you guys think? Because what did we originally think? You know, we originally were thinking about it being, you know, respiratory, right? But then I guess as more and more cases came up, we started to kind of see these cardiovascular symptoms, right? And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of like maybe just sort of interesting to kind of think about the receptor it's using to gain entry, and also what the normal function of that receptor is, right? Again, we're not going to get into like crazy detail, although we could, but and maybe we will read another paper or two that goes into a little more detail kind of along these lines. But I just wanted you guys just to kind of be aware of this and think about that, okay? And then there is also, and I actually pulled a paper like this, there is a paper, I might have said this before, that talks about kind of why we don't see as many cases in children. And some of that has to do with this ACE receptor, that this ACE2 receptor is not fully expressed until a certain age on these cells, okay? And so if the receptor's not there, right, then the virus can't gain entry, okay? So I don't know, but so why not just block this? Yeah, why not just block that receptor, right? Wouldn't that help with preventing infection, COVID? Right, potentially. I mean, so I guess this is the idea of kind of, if you think about therapeutics and things like that, probably there's a lot of people sort of looking at this pathway, right? All right, so anyway, I just wanted to make sure we had a little, you know, I sort of mentioned that a little bit, because we probably have a little bit more to come on that. And by the way, if somebody wants to choose COVID as their topic for the poster, you can, right? Even though we started looking at some papers, that's fine. That's fair game. Any other questions related to this, guys? No? All right, so let me pull up that chapter 5 lecture, and then we'll go from there. I am gonna have to end class a little early because there's some rewards or award ceremony thing that I'm supposed to go to. It's supposed to start at 3, but I'm gonna go in late. So just so you guys know, it'll give you a chance to talk to to decide what disease you're doing, talk to your group members maybe also, or just listen to that lecture on chapter 5. So let me just pull that up just to give you a little bit of introduction or clarification on leptin. That was the one question, because in the recorded lecture, if you listen to it, I kind of was like, oh, maybe you should know this. And I was like, no, maybe not, maybe not, maybe. And then I kind of like went back and forth. So let me just clarify exactly what I want you guys to know regarding leptin, okay? Any other questions, I guess, that kind of came up from chapter 5 that you guys might want me to go over too? All right. Oh, I already have this.
Let's just focus on that process with leptin and the other hormones, just how like, I did it last night. I'm not sure if I remember a lot of it, but just how like it and how the hormones are involved in the food process. Like that's what you want us to really take away from.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. I guess the idea, you know, and I kind of make this point in the recorded lecture that like for us to understand that obesity is complex, right? Just like most diseases we talk about. And we just named kind of some of the hormones involved, right, in energy balance. But I think the sort of bigger picture take home message is that you can think of it kind of two ways, right? If somebody has a dysregulation or, you know, a change in expression of any of these hormones, it could potentially lead to obesity, right? You guys kind of see that, right? And we know there is a genetic component to obesity, right? Can we pinpoint one specific thing? No, in, you know, most common forms of obesity. But you can also think of it on the flip side. If you're obese and that then causes alterations or excess secretion of some of these hormones, right? It then leads to all these other health problems, right? And they all kind of affect each other. So it's kind of like, and so then you're going to get more and more sort of hormones and physiological processes that are thrown out of whack as a result of being obese, right? And then that's why we see type 2 diabetes and all these other types of diseases that are associated with it. So I think it's kind of important to sort of understand it both ways, right? And understand that it's not just about calories in and calories out, that there's so many mechanisms that regulate appetite, right? That regulate just metabolism kind of in general and metabolic, reactions that are occurring in your cells, right? So that's kind of the big take home, sort of, I guess, point. And I'll pull up those there's a couple slides kind of in a row that really try to get at a little bit of the sort of mechanism, right? In the biology behind it. And one of the big ones was leptin. And then also I listed a whole bunch of other GI hormones, right? So let's just talk a little bit about that. The other thing is be prepared. We'll go over this chapter 5, this case study on Thomas Johnson. I was going to say Jefferson on Wednesday. Okay. So let me just pull up it would help if I pulled up the PowerPoint instead of that. So, did anyone calculate their BMI? So I always like, be like, all right, hey, everyone, just kind of stop and like, see if you just kind of do a general little calculation of your BMI and see where you fall. You might be surprised to know, right, where you sort of fall in there, and think about kind of how accurate that is to assess, whether somebody's obese or not. Probably not the most accurate way, right? But one of the ways we're going to sort of diagnose. All right. I don't know why I did this before too. Okay, so I mean, I think this figure is definitely important. Okay, and then we talk a little bit more specifically, right? So what this is showing you here, right? I mean, if we had to pick, just like kind of before when we were asking or we were talking about certain brain regions that were involved in like regulating the stress response, right? Well, here's the same brain region coming up again, right? But if we talk about maintenance, or energy homeostasis, energy balance, right? Regulation of food intake, all these things that are related to obesity, what's the brain region that's going to be responsible for as the sort of main regulator? Is the hypothalamus, okay? Why the hypothalamus controls the endocrine system, right? And so, and the other thing is, again, to understand that there's going to be signals that come actually from adipose tissue, from those adipocytes, from those fat cells themselves, okay? They produce signals, they produce hormones. What's one hormone that's actually produced by the adipocytes? I already mentioned it.
Leptin.
Yeah, leptin. Leptin's actually produced by the fat cells, right? So if you have larger than normal fat cells or more fat cells, that means what? You're going to produce more leptin, okay? That may lead to problems with the leptin receptors. It's going to affect kind of all these related molecules, okay? GI tract also is going to release hormones and other mediators, right? That then eventually go to kind of interact with the hypothalamus, okay? So again, pretty complex. So this is kind of more of a general figure, I guess, to kind of get at a little bit more of these specifics here. So the particular nucleus or region of the hypothalamus that's involved in sort of, I guess, appetite control is called the arcuate nucleus, okay? And what do we mean by nucleus here? I put notes in the...
A group of neurons that work together for one function.
Yeah, good. So make sure you guys check the notes in the PowerPoint. I remind you of that when I'm doing the lecture, but yeah, it's basically a group of neurons that kind of work together. Okay, so within the hypothalamus, there are many different nuclei, okay? So within that nucleus, right, you can have neurons that act as appetite stimulating neurons, right, orexigenic, or appetite depressing neurons, okay? And remember also that there are various other signals that are going to come into the hypothalamus as well, right? When you think about like the smell, the sight, memory of food, that's all going to feed into the hypothalamus, and then the hypothalamus is then going to be kind of making that decision as whether you feel hungry or you don't, right? As just one example. All right, so here is the figure that kind of focuses on leptin. Now, again, I'll apologize for me kind of going back and forth in the recorded lecture, but I was thinking about having you guys know more detail, and then I was like, forget it, right? It was just too much. One thing I want to point out here, this down here is kind of in a weird place. It looks like it's in her stomach, right? But in actuality, these are some of these chemical mediators, right? Or other peptides that are involved in sort of leptin signaling, okay? So it really belongs up here, right? With that said, you don't have to worry about these different peptides here, okay? What I want you guys to know about leptin, okay, is pretty much described in the notes down here, okay? Remember that leptin is adipocyte derived. What does that mean? It's produced by the fat cells themselves, right? It gets released into the bloodstream, and then where does it go? Where is leptin's target, or one of its main targets? We just said it. In the brain, where do you think it goes?
Hypothalamus.
Hypothalamus, yeah, particularly to that arcuate nucleus, okay? Where it's going to bind to its receptors, you know, sitting on those neurons, okay, in the arcuate nucleus, and then it's gonna have some effect on those neurons, okay? I mean, the idea of what the function of leptin is down here, right? It provides the brain with information on how much adipose tissue is there, right? And how much energy is stored, right? I mean, fat is essentially an energy storage molecule. Your body can break down fat for energy, right? So leptin, if you kind of want to think of its job, is to provide the brain with that information. Sure, you got enough fat stores, right? You probably, you know, should not eat anymore, right? You guys see that? But again, so you can see how if this system is dysfunctional in any way, right? Maybe you still feel like you're hungry when really you shouldn't be, right? Because these signals are not properly being sent to the brain, right? And again, that hypothalamus is that ultimate regulator, okay? So I guess I also want you to understand, again, you know, that's why I listed all these other hormones, because it's not just leptin. There's lots of other hormones involved in this as well, okay? Leptin's pretty hotly studied because I think it was discovered, I think I told you guys when it was discovered, like 1994 or something like that. So once that was discovered, you know, people really studied it pretty hard, right? And so we know, I guess we know a lot about it in terms of like how it signals and things like that. And so that's why the book adds in these details, okay? But again, in terms of the level I want you guys to know, it's really written down here, okay? So again, once leptin is released into the bloodstream, it binds to the leptin receptors in the hypothalamus sitting on those neurons, right? And this regulates the release of peptides in food intake, is referring to kind of this, right? There's other mediators that are sort of part of this mechanism, okay? But the effect is that it's going to lead to an inhibition of appetite, right? It's going to suppress appetite. So I guess if you kind of think about in general, leptin will suppress appetite, okay? But again, more complex than that, you guys can see right here, okay? But don't confuse yourself and worry about those details, all right? I kind of drew your attention to them and said, if you really want to know more, if you're interested in it, there's another figure, 5.5, that zooms on, you know, in on this a little bit more. And there is more information in the book as well, all right? What's another place or another thing that leptin interacts with, and it's written down here, and it's actually showing you this on the diagram, right? It's interaction with the catecholamines. So what's an example of a catecholamine? We talked about it in our stress lecture too.
Would it be dopamine?
Dopamine's one. Yep, we talked about them. That. And then what else? What are two other catecholamines we talked about a lot in our stress lecture?
Norepinephrine and epinephrine.
Good. Norepinephrine, epinephrine. Those are also catecholamines. Okay. Here, primarily, what it's focusing on is the fact that leptin can actually interact with the dopamine system. I guess think of it as sort of increasing dopamine. Okay, in pathways involved in motivation and reward. Okay, so whenever something like something sort of increases dopamine in these pathways, right? We say that it can have rewarding pathways or addictive properties, right? And so the idea is that this is going to tie in the sort of rewarding properties of food, right? We all know that, you can be addicted to food, right? Why? It leads to reward, right? And so anyway, that's what this is showing you here, that it does, leptin is actually one of the hormones that will sort of interact with that dopamine system, particularly if you're thinking about motivation and reward of sort of food intake. Okay, so that's what I want you guys to know about leptin. Does that help kind of clarify? Yeah. Okay. And then again, I listed some GI hormones. Okay. So again, these are not produced by the fat cells. They're actually produced by GI organs, right? Ghrelin, for instance, is produced in the stomach. It stimulates appetite. So it's sort of like, you can kind of think of it as sort of the opposite of leptin. Okay. And so I want you guys to be familiar with sort of basic function of these hormones that I listed. I mean, at least we should know that leptin is secreted by the fat cells themselves. Hormones like ghrelin, CCK, those are produced actually in the GI tract. Okay. But they're all going to be involved. Again, we say the main concept, right? Energy balance or energy homeostasis, right? And so, if you're ingesting something, right, it gets digested, those, gets broken down, right, into subunits of proteins and carbohydrates, and they get then absorbed, right, into the bloodstream and then ultimately into your body cells. Okay, so it's all this sort of, this is all involved in sort of energy homeostasis, right? The body has to know that it has enough of a nutrient, right? And again, if that's thrown off, that regulation is thrown off in any way, it can lead to obesity, okay? So I'll kind of leave it at that, and we can talk more, about this. And again, if you haven't listened to the recorded lecture, please do. The end part of the chapter, we talk about, how obesity affects health, right? Pathophysiology of obesity, right? We talk a little bit about the genetics, the inflammation, talk about insulin resistance, okay? A whole bunch of other terms, and then talk a little bit about diseases related or kind of to obesity, but we kind of are talking about that throughout, right? So this is kind of, I guess, a little bit redundant, sort of the end of the chapter, but anyway, I think it kind of hits on pretty much everything that we want to consider when we're thinking about obesity. Okay. Any questions, guys? So make sure you definitely, are familiar too with all these concepts here, right? How does, genetics influence obesity, or how does, I guess it's that way. How does obesity, or how is inflammation related to obesity, right? What do we mean by insulin resistance? Okay, I added in this little cartoon that I think is probably helpful for when we think about insulin, when we think about type 2 diabetes. All right. All right, guys. So like I said, if you haven't listened to this recorded lecture, please do. We will go over that chapter 5 case study. And then I also can go over some more of these concepts if we feel like we need more clarification for chapter 5, okay? And then I will introduce chapter 6 because we'll be moving on for that, right, onto that chapter. And then we'll work on those group projects a little bit as well on Wednesday. All right. So like I said, be on the lookout for that Google Doc. I'll send it to you so that you can add your topic. And then that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll stay on. Okay, guys? Otherwise, you guys are good to go.
I was wondering, did you mark the